All right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to do intro to commercial. I've done this a couple times now in this office. So anybody who wants to dabble in it, I like to encourage you because it's fun. It's different. Instead of doing regular residential resale every day, you get to do something different because each commercial deal you deal with is so different. So I know when I talk about the kits and templates I've put in our web forums, some of you have come to me and said, hey, there's nothing for commercial in there. Well, that's because commercial is so different. Every deal you deal with is so different because every business is so different, whether you're dealing with a restaurant or an automotive shop or a law firm or something. It's so different. So it's hard to just put a kit or a template in there. So I encourage you guys, if you're navigating some kind of commercial deal, just to come and talk to me and figure out what your needs are, what clauses you need to put in there, right? Today, we're going to touch on sale of business a little. It's a tricky one. So I like to put it up just to encourage you guys. It's definitely a good avenue. We always want to find different avenues to find business. Like I know a lot of people are saying right now, hey, it's a little bit slow, but there's always business to be had. So you have to think outside the box, not just your regular residential, like, oh, I don't have a buyer to work with right now. You want to think, what else can I do for business? Where can I get business from? So I'm just going to share my screen here. We'll start talking about sale of business. Okay. Thank you. So what do we need to do when we're selling a business? So we'll just go back to the basics here. So the first thing we want to ask the person is, what is the reason for your sale? Why are you selling your business? Okay, what's your motivation? It's one of the questions the potential buyer is going to ask, right? So if they say, well, I have no business, it's a really crappy location, and I'm not making enough money, I can guarantee you that business isn't going to sell that well because somebody wants to take it over and make it prosperous. So unless you have somebody who's been a restaurateur for 10 years and they see a struggling business and they can identify why your client is struggling because they're new to the business, for instance, and they're not handling it properly, unless they can take that and flip it, you want to find out why your client is selling and hopefully just kind of, I guess, calm a buyer's mind on why they can purchase this business and still make it happen for them, right? So owners commonly sell their business for different reasons. What is that? So it could be a retirement. I've worked here 30, 40 years. I want to retire. I want to sell my business and move on, right? Partnership disputes. So very often you see people have gotten together. They're like, oh, we're going to open up a bar together or a restaurant together. And then the partners dispute. They want to sell and move on, right? Illness or death. So again, kind of, you find that around the retirement age a lot, mom and pop shop, one of the two passes away and the other one wants to sell the business and move on. Becoming overworked. Maybe I've owned this business for a long time, but I've recently gotten married and I've had twins and I don't want to run this business anymore, right? Or boredom, a change of pace. Maybe I've just run this, convenience store for 30 years now and I'm looking to do something else, right? I want to try a different business. So, I mean, it's good for sure if you have one of those reasons. You can't really lie to the potential buyer if your client says, well, it's really poor location and I'm not doing well and I need to get out because I'm not making the rent, right? You can't really lie. You can say that, especially to other agents that come to you, you can say different things to kind of shirk how that bad connotation on that location. You could say, well, if my client is a new restaurateur, he just opened up a year ago. He's not doing so great with this business. He doesn't really know what he's doing. If your client is a qualified person or like if they've run this type of business before, they might do well in this location, right? Some owners consider selling the business when it's not profitable. This can make it harder to attract buyers. This is what I'm talking about. Consider the business's ability to sell, its readiness, and your timing. There are many attributes that can make the business appear more attractive, including increasing profits. Okay, so if you guys have tried to do any sale of business in the last little bit, it's been a little difficult because everybody wants to see that 2-year income statement, right? They want to see what the profits were for the business for the last 2 years. What has happened to us the last 2 years? It's been COVID. So everybody's businesses have been down, right? So it's been really difficult. So you find a lot of people have decreasing profits or they actually decreased hours, right? So they said, my profits might have been fine, but I wasn't open half the time, or, especially restaurants when they weren't allowed in-person dining and stuff like that. So difficult, but Any businesses you're getting right now, increasing profits, obviously that's going to help show consistent income figures, a strong customer base. So that's a big attraction for people buying the business. If you've been in the area for 40 years and everybody comes to you because you're the best fish and chips place around, great, you have a good customer base. Then a major contract that spans over several years. So we're going to talk about the strength of the lease in a little bit. So preparing documents, what do you need to do to list to sale a business? Okay. You need to gather financial statements, tax returns, right? For the last 3 to 4 years, people are going to be asking because they want to see the strength of the business, especially now they might want to go further back than the last 2 years. They might say, okay, during COVID, you didn't do so well, but what about, 2019, 2018, what about those statements, right? Create a list of contacts related to sales transactions and supplies. So very important. When you're doing a sale business, you have to kind of get into the mind of that business. So obviously I'm not a mechanic, right? But I need to sort of figure out, and I need to work with my client and say, you need to give me what I need to sell this business. So is any of this equipment rental, right? Do you have lease on any of the major equipment like the hoists or the painting booths, stuff like that? You need to dig up any relevant paperwork such as the current lease. So again, the strength of the lease is important. Create copies of the documents and distribute them to financially qualified potential buyers. So one thing you have to make sure is when you collect all this information, you're not going to take it and put it up with your listing. You're not going to take your client's financial statements and put it up with a listing. We're going to talk about a non-disclosure agreement too, if we catch enough time. But what we're going to do is we're just going to gather it because potential buyers who are interested are going to want this information, right? You should also provide a summary on how the business is conducted and up-to-date operating manual, sort of for the buyer, like a buyer's guide to how to run this business. Very often you'll see written into the contract too that the seller of the business will offer to stay a month or two after the purchaser has purchased the business to show them how it's run, especially if it's like I say, that mom and pop shop that's been there forever and people are used to the way they make their fish and chips or used to the client base. So when they walk into the convenience store, they know exactly who they are and what they want when they're coming in. So they might do a bit of training per se just to keep the business running well. You also want to make sure the business is presentable. Any areas of the business or equipment that are broken or run down should be fixed or replaced prior to the sale. So I just listed a restaurant. You guys are probably seeing it online there. And I walked in and we said to the owner, we said, we just need to, the outside looks great. I said, but people are buying your business. So they're worried about your kitchen, right? So we said, I understand that you're still running the business, but anything that's not needed, put it away. So they took a bunch of, like serving trays, bowls, knickknacks, just sitting around that, they're just used to having around their kitchen. Who cares? The client who comes in to eat doesn't necessarily see their kitchen every day. But I said, let's make this kitchen look like the best, cleanest kitchen ever, because people are coming in to purchase this business, right? I want to showcase. I said, can we get the hood cleaned? Can we, clean up the stoves and whatnot? Let's just do a whole once over because people are coming in to purchase this business. And those chattels are coming with the business. So it's important that they showcase what looks good, right? People aren't necessarily just coming to buy, they're buying the location as well, but they're coming to also buy the equipment. Sorry? Oh, I thought you said that. So finding a buyer, a business sale may take between 6 months and 2 years, right? So it's not necessarily a quick sale, right? You got to find the perfect buyer when you're selling a business because it has to be someone who wants to run that already made business, right? Here, once you have prospective buyers, here's how to keep the process moving along. So get 2 or 3 potential buyers just in case the initial deal falters. Very difficult to do, but this is what they say. Stay in contact with potential buyers. Find out whether the potential buyer pre-qualifies for financing before giving out information about your business. So most of the time they won't finance a sale unless the only way I see a sale financed, and it's not like getting a mortgage, is especially if you're working the buyer, you need to know a lot of people can put a business plan into place and go to the bank and then they'll get loans to fund their business idea, right? Or to go and like purchase this, they have a good business plan, but they can't go to the bank and say, okay, I bought this business, I need a mortgage on it. You're not getting it because there's no actual come on.
Sorry to interrupt you, Christine. We don't hear you on and off.
Oh, really? Okay, hold on. Let me stop the share for a second. I'm not sure why. Mute and unmute, maybe that would help. I have, you know what, the radio's on in the background. Maybe it's cutting me out a little bit. If it catches that, let me turn that off 1 second. There you go. Sometimes I guess maybe if there's background noise, it might catch it. Is it any better? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know if
Okay.
you're having
Thank
trouble
you.
hearing. Okay. Good morning. Okay. Where were we? So we want to pre-qualify. We want to say, okay, is this potential buyer going to be a strong buyer for this business? So not only do they have to have the funding in place, right? So you have to make sure, okay, just like I would ask as a listing agent, I'd ask if your client was pre-qualified for their mortgage. I'm going to say, do they have funding in place for this transaction? But I also want to know, has your client run a business similar to this before? Or has your client, do they have a good business plan in effect? Why? Because I'm about to hand my lease over to this person as well. So if I talk about the strength in a lease, generally a business is considered stronger if they have a strong lease in place. So even if they're towards the end of the term of the lease, if they have a right to renew for many more years, right? That is comfort that I'm not going to get kicked out of this location. So I'm going to go and I'm going to build this business in this location. And I have say I'm at the end of a 5-year term and I have the right to renew another 5 years, 5 + 5, even a lot of them you see. That's a good strong lease because now I know that I can put my money into this establishment and my hard work, and then I can still have time to renew this lease, right? But what happens is the buyer now comes along and says, okay, I'd like to purchase this business, but I've never run a restaurant before and I'm purchasing this restaurant. And they go to the landlord and the landlord says, yeah, no, I don't feel comfortable with that. This person has no previous history. They have no experience. They don't have, credit built up. They don't have any experience running a restaurant. I don't want them as a tenant. So now you've just lost your sale. Right, even though the person's interested in purchasing, you have to remember that most of these transactions, not all of them, you can check online, most of them say sale of business without property. So you're just purchasing the business, you're purchasing the clientele base, you're purchasing the lease in a sense, right? So the landlord has to be in agreement about this. So you have to remember that your clauses have to be in place too, right? So you have to say this sale is conditional on the approval of the landlord transferring the lease to the new purchaser, right? Put any agreements in writing. Obviously, that's a common practice for us. You may encounter the following documents after the sale: the bill of sale, which transfers the business assets to the buyer, an assignment of the lease, right? The security management, which has the seller retain a lien on the business. Okay. All right. So other things to consider. So that was sort of an article quick that I took points off of. This is my own list I had created when I started selling real estate, and I just kept on adding to it because I'd forget there's so much entailed in every commercial transaction that you do that you're sitting there, you have to make yourself a checklist and get used to the things you have to answer. So we're talking about the value of the business. How do you evaluate a business at the end of the day? You got to figure out what your client wants versus what's realistic. Right. So generally they were saying 2.5 times the net profit of the business. Okay. That's been a hard valuation. So like I say, I just listed a sale of business a couple of weeks ago. It was a hard valuation process because what do we talk about? The profits have been down. The profits have been down with COVID the last 2 years. Everybody's had a little less business, and especially it being a restaurant that I'm selling, it in itself has experienced a lot less business in the last 2 years because of COVID. So the valuation right now for 2.5 times the net profit is going to be difficult if you're taking the last 2 years sales. So I had to discuss with my client. I said, okay, what is it that you have in here? How much value do you want to get back? How much money have you put in? And we sort of had to play with the numbers. And I actually reduced the price a little about a week ago because we're just not getting as many hits as I feel we need to, right? So what is the value? The value depends on the strength of the lease renewal. On top of the 2.5 years that I was talking about net, we're going to say, okay, it's also a great lease. We're almost at the end of 5 years, but it's got a 5 + 5 renewal term, right? Is the property leased or owned? Obviously, if it's owned, it's going to bring the value way up because you're purchasing property. Most of these sale businesses are without property though. The square foot and the rent, is it good rent? Okay, so it's fine. You got a great lease renewal and you have, a good, business base coming, a lot of clientele coming, but maybe this person is struggling to pay the rent because the landlord has the rent really high. Is the rent at a marketable rent, right? You have to find that out for your client if you're working on the buyer behalf. You have to value separate price together. So it's like, you're going to see, does it include the building? Does it include a good lease? What's the net profit? Put it all together. You kind of got to get a worksheet going and see what is a reasonable price. Things that add to the business, definitely LLBO. If you get a liquor license in your restaurant, a lot of times that's hard for people to get a liquor license for their location. Are there any charges against the business? If you plan to go forward as a restaurant, say you're opening up a restaurant and you want to have a liquor license, you're like, it's okay, this place doesn't have one, but I'm going to go forward and get one. The way a liquor license works is sometimes if that restaurant or that location has had charges or offenses in the past, it's difficult for that location to get a liquor license going forward, even if your client takes over the business. Net yearly income equals value. So that's what we were talking about, the net yearly income, usually 2.5 times, right? Are there vacant units? So this is a big thing. You have to learn how to do research for your client, especially working on the buyer's behalf. So if you're going and they're, this guy says, oh no, it's really great. Business is great. I just, I'm retiring, or I want to switch jobs, what I'm doing, or I need to move. And you notice that in the plaza, there's 2 other vacant units. You want to you want to investigate to yourself. You want to ask them, say, what were those other properties? What businesses were there? Maybe Google it online and see, okay, one was a cell phone shop and another one was a restaurant. Why did those 2 businesses close? Why is that a blank space right now in that plaza? Is this a good location for my client? Maybe there's not enough foot traffic coming to this location. Maybe the parking's a pain and people don't like coming to this plaza. There's different things that can affect it, and you want to make sure you're finding a good product for your clients at the end of the day. Major roadwork or construction in the near future. So you saw a lot of this. If you went online before construction started on Eglinton, a lot of businesses started selling because they knew it was coming, right? And some people bought businesses and some people would be okay. They'd be doing okay. But a lot of what I've heard is that, they went to go sell the business, people turn around, they buy it, and then they realize, oh, shoot, they didn't think ahead of time. Now we're under 2-3 years of construction for this RT line on Eglinton, right? So a lot of businesses picked up and sold before that all started. So you want to kind of do a quick Google search. It's just a little bit of time and effort on your part as an agent. You want to go in and say, hey, is there construction coming in the near future? Are they planning on building something in the near future, which might be beneficial to your client? Maybe you have a location that's not doing so well, but they're building a condo beside it in 2 to 3 years. That's going to bring a lot of traffic to the business, right? Employees and contracts. What are the employees and contracts? So this is good on either side, the buyer, the list. You want to ask your client, you want to say, how many employees do you have on hand? Will they be staying on with the business? What is their contract? What is their pay, right? Find those things out for the buyer, because the buyer is going to come in and they're going to need the same amount of employees, and they want to know whether they're going to keep these ones on or not, depending on their contracts. Is the business on record, right? Want to investigate the business a little bit. Is it a franchise? This is a big one. So franchise is just like I was talking about the lease. You want to make sure that the buyer is qualified to take over the franchise. When it's a franchise, you have to take in consideration that the franchisor has to approve the person running the business. So if you want to go and you want to buy a Tim Hortons, it's really difficult to buy a Tim Hortons, even if your client has got loads of money. I got $100 million in my bank account. But if Tim Hortons won't approve me to run their franchise, I can't buy a Tim Hortons. And Tim Hortons is one of the ones that sticks out because I've heard people have problems with this before when their clients want to purchase it, right? Because Tim Hortons wants to make sure that you either run something very similar or have another Tim Hortons. If you don't, it's really difficult to buy that franchise, so right?
For the first time person.
First time, yeah. Yeah. Some of the popular franchises are tough, Tim Hortons, McDonald's, Subways, stuff like that. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think Subway is the easier one because you don't need a grill or anything, like basically just need somewhere to plug in.
Yeah, they have the panini grill now though.
Yeah. But like as in you don't
like actual cooking, yeah.
Anything to cook, and they're the ones, they just want Subways. There's more Subways than there's almost as many Subways as Tim Hortons apparently.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they want more.
They want to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't require a lot of room, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they
Most of
don't
their clients are walk in and leave. It's not sitting and dining.
It's a different thing there.
Yeah.
Third-class citizens, more of a-
Mm,
And startup costs are minimal, so that's why you see a lot of immigrants running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I find a lot of people who come actually have a lot of money to play with too. Right? So it's not necessarily, but yeah, no, for sure.
No, they're not poor, they're just.
Yeah.
immigrants.
Yeah.
I think it is important 2 years working experience.
You need something like that. Tim
Yeah.
Hortons, I've heard, is really difficult franchise to get into.
Okay, you boss, you can, okay, Bhaskar has a 2 year experience, yeah, that way also possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
The actual owner, million or come over 2 years experience,
Yeah.
that's why possible.
Experience, I'm not just clean the tables with this crumbs people. Or-
But that's what you need to take into consideration. So you need to think about, okay, like, am I selling this franchise?
Yeah.
Okay, this buyer's coming, great. He's got enough money. He's pre-qualified. He's good with all the financials, but is he going to get approval from this franchisor, right? So I have to find that out, right?
Mhm.
Is the sale of business coming with or without equipment? So you need to get your client to put a chattels list together, chattels and fixtures, because a lot of them are fixtures like the hoods and stuff like that that are in place in the restaurant, for instance, if you're selling, and they can be worth a lot of money. Like the one that I'm selling, the guy spent almost $100,000 on his hood and stove and everything. So it's quite a bit of money put in for that stuff that can add to the sale.
But even if they spend more money, that doesn't mean anything really, because in the long run, it's what the profit business makes, right?
Absolutely. You can spend $100,000 on a hood and have zero business. And, you know, maybe I opened up a pickle shop and it's not working. Nobody likes it. Doesn't matter how much I spent. But the thing is you're trying to recoup these expenses for your client at the end of the day, right? So you want them to itemize everything so you can evaluate the business properly and you can justify the value, because your job is to justify the value to the public. When people call you, they're going to say, why are you up for $175,000? So I'm going to say, well, all the, you know, in my case, for instance, any calls I've been getting, I'm saying, well, all the furniture is included. They got a license to have patio area. They fenced off the patio area. So it's a big expense. And all the chattels and fixtures, here you go. Here's a list of the chattels and fixtures in the property. And all of that's worth money at the end of the day. Like I said, the hood and everything, all the stove and whatnot in the restaurant. I keep on going back to restaurant, but there's so many other different scenarios, right? How many years in the business? So how many years your client's been in the business? Also, how many years the buyer's been in the business, right? Because like we talked about that franchise, is it going to work? So I have a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, I want to like get a lease for this property, or I want to purchase this business for my client. You have to think, how many years has your client been in the business? Because it's great that you have a 5-year lease with a 5-year renewal term. But if I lock you into a 5-year lease and you're trying a brand new business and you fall flat on your face for the first year, commercial leases are really difficult to get out of, really difficult to break, right? Now your client's stuck with 4 years, the balance of the lease term, right? So you have to take into consideration how experienced your client is in doing the business. And on the flip side too, right? You want to make sure this mom and pop have been running this, I keep on going back to the fish and chip store for 40 years. They're going to pass this business on to somebody who's never run a restaurant ever before. Now that business that they worked on for 40 years is going to flop in a year because this person's going to run it into the ground. Maybe that's not something your client wants, right? So how many years in the business, what kind of experience your client has, right? Another thing we want to talk about is zoning too. You know, it doesn't really matter if the property is already running, say it's a mechanic shop. This is where I've run into zoning a lot. So my guy says, oh, this is great. You know what I mean? I'm going to come and I'm going to run this mechanic shop, and it already has the hoists installed, and, you know, it's already got 2 bay doors and it's great. And yeah, I'm going to pay $150,000 for that because that's good value, because each hoist is worth $100,000. I'm just making it up, $100,000 on their own. But I know that my client wants to work on air conditioners as well. This guy's just an auto body shop. So he just, you know, you take, well, not necessarily auto body. I just take him in for your regular car repair and maintenance. Okay. I know from personally doing a few mechanic shops over the years that a regular mechanic shop and one that does AC needs a different zoning, right? One that does painting needs a different zoning, because it's all environmental and where the city is zoned that you can do it, right? Exactly. So my guy might buy this mechanic shop, turn around and try to get his equipment in for AC or for working on air conditioners, or sorry, not air conditioners. What's it called? Like air conditioners and radiators, is it? Something about the fluid in one of them. And he's gonna come in and now he's gonna realize he can't run his business properly. Because he specializes in radiators and air conditioning and he can't run his business now because, sorry, it's not zoned properly here. And he's just wasted his money, right? Purchasing the business and signing the lease over. So you have to ensure that the zoning is good for your clients as well. It's super important. Okay. So I always ask my client how much they purchased the business for, if they purchased for it. Some of them haven't, a lot of them have started it up on their own. Again, we're trying to recoup the value back for our clients at the end of the day. I just went over some of this, so I'm just seeing, because I'm going to go on to my next document. Any restrictions in place for the purchaser? So that's again, we were talking about the zoning a little bit.
Any
That's-
businesses like that, doesn't matter if it's a gas station.
Doesn't matter if it's a gas station, hotel, multi-residential, if you're buying a restaurant, if you're buying a farm, you know what I mean? If you're buying whatever. That's why I say it's really difficult. You have to do your research because each deal is so different. So your clients come to you with the strangest things. You know what I mean? I want to open up, like, I don't know, different things, right? And you have to go do a little research and you have to think outside the box and you have to talk to your client. So can you tell me a little bit about your business? Because when they tell you about their business, you can figure out what you need to ask them, right? So I had a client who I rented a space in Pickering for on Clements, and he sewed safety straps to hang off the buildings, you know, the guys who hang off the buildings, just those straps that they hook up in, right? They're called safety straps. And his need was that he needed high voltage because he had all these sewing machines and all like these workers sewing these belts all day long. So you needed really high voltage in the place. So this is one thing that I knew I had to look out for, right? Going into each unit. And I would never know that. He'd tell me, oh, I make safety straps. I go, great, here's a warehouse space. He moves in and he realizes that he can't get more voltage to this place, right? So I said, okay, tell me about your business because I don't know anything about safety straps. We're not expected to know everything. We're looking from the real estate side. We're looking to fill out the paperwork and cover our clients' costs and do our due diligence and make sure the lease privileges are there and all that stuff. But I don't know how to make a safety strap. So tell me. And he says, oh, well, we have a lot of sewing machines. And, you know, I said, oh, what's your need for that? I need more voltage. I need a couple of, you know, electrical panels to run all these machinery, right? So you have to take time and find out. There we go. We went over the franchisor. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable. Maybe that's why you guys are getting a choppy sound from me. I keep on getting a message. I was just looking at that.
It's telling me that too.
Yeah, I think the
Unstable
internet's
connection.
I think the internet's a little spotty today. Okay. Is a sale plus stock or with stock? So again, another important thing. If you're something like a convenience store or a mechanic shop, you can easily have $100,000 worth of stock sitting around your property, right? So you can have all of the food and or all of the equipment, like all of the, I don't know, filters and tires or whatever it is they have sitting for stock. You could easily have $100,000, $200,000 worth of stock sitting around. So if your client has that, you're going to say, okay, listen, are you selling it with stock or without stock? Okay, without stock. Okay, well, itemize what stock you have in case people want to purchase it in addition to the business, right? Oh, another thing aside from stock too, you want to talk to your clients about things they have in there that they might be taking with them. So if I walk into a convenience store, I want to look at it and say, hey, you know, a lot of times if you're selling, for instance, if you're selling Coke products, Coke will come and drop the fridges, right? They're not yours. They're not your personal property, but they allow you to use them because you're selling their product. Right. So when you walk in and the fridges are logo Coke or Pepsi on the top, it's because that's the agreement they have with the vendor. Right. So you want to ask them, okay, what's owned here and what's not? Because now my purchaser bought this convenience store. I walk in, there's no fridges for me to store my stuff. They took all the racking because it was, you know, everything where the gum and the chips were sitting on. And that's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment that you're talking about. So you need to be really clear on everything. Are there financials available? Okay, so we already talked about that. Does anybody have any questions so far? Has anybody tried to list a sale of business before?
It's very difficult to sell.
It is. It can sit for a while. Not impossible though.
Especially with COVID, like no one wants to really buy the business. Everyone wants to buy the building so they can rent it out to, like, you know, like they don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I say, so I have an office listing up and I've been really honest with my client from the beginning. I said, you know, Office is moving the slowest. So yeah, again, you have to know your market. We talk a lot about knowing your market, talking to our clients
No one
about
wants to buy an office right
no
now.
one wants to buy an office right now. No one wants to rent an office right now. So many people are working from home. I said to him, I said, office space is moving the slowest right now because everybody found a way to work from home and remotely, right? So unfortunately, I said, I'm going to put it up for you, but I think it's going to take a long, long time. It's called an eye opener. Hopefully things are opening up a little
Sorry,
bit.
what's an
An eye opener, you know what I mean? Just that like office.
No, I know, like, with
Yeah.
all the fact that office.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, definitely. Just a different
And with the
place we're in
increase
right now.
Gas prices as well, like people are.
Everything's affected. Yeah,
I've
exactly.
been coming to the office less, like, you know, it's, I don't know.
You should be coming to the office more.
I know, I've been getting my clients to give me rides, like, it's bad, man, it's bad. Gas is
Well,
expensive.
it sometimes makes sense for them, you know what I mean? I mean, you know, but it's here, Milner Court, building, I think is a office rental place, I think, no? You go to office, you can go rent it per day, per month,
Oh, yeah?
yeah, Milner Court.
Huh.
I hear that.
I wonder if that's because of so many vacancies that they're opening it up. Yeah.
I checked out a commercial place as well, and
Yeah,
they were using it for a campaign, like a
Mhm.
local election
Yeah.
campaign
Mm,
space. So,
Mhm.
because it's pretty cheap to rent out.
mhm.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've had my listing up since, I want to say like February. So a couple of months. Yeah. And I think I've only had like 4 or 5 showings on it.
How
Yeah.
do you do a showing for a commercial anyway? Like, as in, is it the same, like you just book a showing?
Basically,
and you just-
Yeah, you just do it. So a lot of times if their business is in up and swinging already, or still running, I should say, and not vacant, they want you to do it after hours, right? Because they don't want you
Yeah,
coming in
that's
during
the thing. And
office hours. Sometimes they
lot
don't
of,
want their employees to know, you know what I mean, that they're selling. So they say, don't
a
talk to the
lot of,
employees.
A lot of commercial places are also, yep, I forgot, okay, never mind.
That's okay. Yeah, no, so yeah, a lot of people say don't come during, so my commercial listing is like that. There's actually a tenant in there, and it doesn't matter, it's just an office space for rent, but they asked me that I go after hours to not disturb the current tenant there right now. Yeah,
Did you
Remember-
tell the owner of the business it's gonna take a long time?
I
to
did.
sell? Because
Yeah.
it's a business, not like a house.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
So
So if the, like, a lot of commercial properties are also not on MLS because they like to do it.
Really
off-
good point.
Yeah.
Really
off
good point.
market.
So if you do dabble in commercial and you try, you're gonna go and you're gonna find that not a lot of resources are online on our MLS, I should say, or our Stratus when you go on. You have to start networking when you get into commercial. So there's lots of WhatsApp groups you can join. I've looked on Facebook. I've been posting my office space and my sale of business right now on Facebook and WhatsApp, any groups that I'm a part of that are commercial realtors talking with each other. Talk to all the agents you know, find out if they have clients that are possibly looking for it, because it's just a difficult, it's not as easy, like I say, as residential resale. You can't just put it up on Stratus and all of a sudden you're getting all these showings all of a sudden. You have to put a little more effort into it for sure. It's definitely something that's not as fast moving.
Business or?
I have a sale of business and I have a commercial office for rent.
Oh, the office.
Yeah, I have 2. But it's like they're both just sitting right now. So if anybody has a client, feel free to bring it.
I do have a client, but they don't want an office, they want something proper.
Yeah, no, it's an office space, but it's not
Like,
for
is it
sale.
zoned for anything else, like?
No, but it's not for sale. It's just for rent. He wants a higher market rent on it.
tell them,
What he's getting right now is pretty low market rent and he doesn't want to renew his tenants.
try something, like, say 6 months free rent.
Yeah, I
No, but
know.
that
That
defeats the purpose.
defeats
of him
purpose, getting more
But
rent.
he might, are you sure he's like, you know, offices, we just talked about how like people are home and everything, so like offices aren't really,
But his rent is really, I don't know. Anyways, it's up. If we find somebody, it'd be great. Yeah.
like he's not
So-
taking the tenants out unless.
No.
clients-
And his tenant's kind of wishy-washy, kind of wants to leave right now anyway. So like, you know, they're just kind of half shut down the business, but I just wanted to touch on non-disclosure agreements too. So like I said, when you collect your financials for your clients, you want to make sure you're careful with them. So very often with your listing, you want to make sure there's a layer of protection. I just throw up this non-disclosure agreement. This is like one of the ones I use. And I just get them to date and sign it before I send them the client's financials or any personal information going out to them. And it just says, we agree in consideration for access to information submitted by us pertaining to this transaction. I will keep all information provided relating to the business and or finances, marketing plans, discussions, and processes under development under strict confidence. Disclose this information solely to the individuals that have signed a non-disclosure agreement with or who have expressed approval from the seller, either verbal or written, to receive this information. So basically, I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to go and I'm not going to scream to the rooftops or put it on, Google somewhere that, XYZ is selling the fish and 40-year-old mom and pop shop shutting down, selling their business because they're not making good profit in the last 2 years. You just don't want your information out there when your client's sharing it, right? I have sample clauses and I have paperwork that we can go over, but I just don't want to run out of time here. But when you go on to do this kind of thing, if you guys are muddling through and saying, hey, what paperwork do I need? What kit do I need to pull up? Do I need to, do XYZ? Just call me and let me know. There are specific forms you can go. I have a little bit of time, so I'll try and go in here. If your client has an incorporation, there's a different VIN track that we have to fill out. So I'll try and go over that quickly. So the fin track looks a little different. It's a corporation fin track. Corporation entity identification record. So it's pretty much almost the same as our identification records we fill out. But what we're going to do is we're going to ask our clients for their articles of incorporation, and we're going to grab this form and we're going to start filling it out. So what's the transaction property address? So wherever the place you're purchasing is, your name, the date, name of the corporation. So normally start off with the name of our client, but you want the name of the corporation and the corporation address, which may be different from your client's address. What is their principal business? Right? Name of the directors. So you want to see your client's name here somewhere if they're making a big deciding factor for the business, right? And then type of verification record, articles of incorporation. And then the rest of it's pretty straightforward as we go on. Most of this we don't fill out. And it's good if you're not filling out most of this because it means it's not a high risk transaction, right? You should be filling out very little of this identification record, hopefully. But you want to see Canadian corporation or entity, foreign corporation or entity does not exist, or operate in high risk, right? Hopefully you're not clicking off medium risk or high risk. I don't think has anybody ever clicked off anything different on the identification record? I don't think I ever have, right? Anything high risk, any big cash you got in hand, anything strange?
It wasn't high risk though. It was just somebody like citizen, but not present in Canada.
Oh, okay.
That was the only different one that I did,
Yeah, I had something similar. I had a Century 21 in London refer to me when I was at Century 21, and I did that without seeing the client ever. So it wasn't physically present, right? So that was the scariest it got. But other than that, I haven't had any really sketchy things where I've had to check off anything else.
Stuff from Canada.
Still have IDs. I got the passport, the ID, everything emailed to me, right? So now on Zoom, because back then when I sold it, it wasn't so prevalent. I didn't think of doing it. Now I might do a Zoom just to make sure it's the same person, because a lot of these lawyers are doing Zoom closings right now. Right. And so they want to see that it's you. You hold up your ID, you sign the form, you show it to them that you just signed it. Have you guys done Zoom closings yet? Yeah, so it's pretty good. But back then I just had to over ask for ID. But this, like I say, is pretty straightforward. It's like your regular identification record that you normally fill out. You can also fill out the affidavit and the listing paperwork we can go over as well. But like I say, I encourage you guys, especially now when everybody's coming and saying, oh, things are a little bit slow. Don't worry about it. Go out and try to find different ways of business. I want you guys to think of different avenues to get business all the time. So when you're out there, you're not only saying, hey, are you selling your house? Hi, are you selling your house? Are you buying your house? Do you know anybody who wants to buy or sell? Do you have a business? How's the business doing here? Are you thinking of selling soon? Great. you know, tons of different ways, tons of different things to get business from. So you want to like just think out of the box and ask your client what their different needs are. If they have these needs, you can certainly do it. I've had agents say to me in the past, and not necessarily from this office, like in my other office, and they say, oh no, my client wanted to do this commercial deal and I was too scared. I've never done commercials, so I declined. Don't do that. If you are terrified out of your mind and you have no clue what you're doing, say no problem and come running to the office and we'll figure it out together, right? Don't give away any business at the end of the day. You want to like go out there and get, and once you dabble in it and you learn how to do a little bit, you get a little more confidence to say, okay, you know, I kind of know what questions I need to ask, or even if you don't know, you could come back and say, you know what, let me figure out what I need to do and I'll get back to you. Just get some listing paperwork signed and we'll figure out what you need for additional documents after. Okay, but get the listing. Always get the listing at the end of the day. Does anybody have any questions online? You guys all gonna go do a commercial deal this week, right? My poor online is so quiet.
Yes, I'm closing mine this week.
Woo! Very good, very
If
good.
all goes well. Yes.
Very good, very good. That'd be excellent.
I had a vacant land listing.
Yeah,
Vacant land where?
and she's worked
downtown.
really hard on it. Really hard on it.
Downtown, vacant land downtown,
Yeah.
where? It's hard to get downtown.
Oh, I
vacant
know,
land.
I know.
Where? You must
But
have- okay, how much
She
did you
cold
sell it for?
called it.
1 million? How
The
big-
asking price was 900.
Yeah,
Oh, how big is the land?
Not big at all. It's like 40 by 50.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
but still vacant land downtown, right? That's
And
crazy.
I did double end it.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
yeah. And she cold called and got it all
Yeah, I did
herself.
census from cold
Did the
calling.
deal.
Cold
Yeah,
calling where?
Yeah.
Downtown?
Downtown, yeah.
yeah.
You were cold calling?
Expired listings. That's why I tell you guys, go back,
Oh,
expired,
expired.
terminated listings. Yeah, so I'm telling you, go back to your expired,
I'm
terminated listing
actually,
calls.
like, I got a
and-
call from, so I did cold
Is it
calling
residential
yesterday.
or commercial?
Sorry.
Was it residential or commercial?
Well, technically it counts as.
Anyways, I'll let you guys all go online there. I'll say goodbye to you, because I know we're just gonna chit chat now in the office a bit, but everybody have a good week and let me know if you need any help. I'll see you all on Thursday evening. Bye, guys.